Okay, Jesse.
Well, welcome everyone. It's so good to see you here for this memorial reading of Krigor's poems. Krikor left a large body of work, 4 books. I believe, if I'm right, Judith, he didn't start writing until later in his life, somewhat later. Is that correct? And so he was very prolific. And he was very concerned with the Armenian genocide because, of course, it affected his family. And this is why we planned today, April 21st, the actual genocide is the 24th, for this memorial reading. So tonight we have a list of poets who have chosen some of their own favorite poems of Krigor's to read. And we're going to listen to them, and then we're going to move on to anyone who would like to add any comments or anecdotes or memories, and you can sign up in the chat for that if it's something you'd like to do. A couple of things to keep in mind. If you desire to clap, there's not going to be any clapping today. Make sure your mic is muted, just because background stuff can get in the way of the readers being heard. And our readers today are Tom Daley, myself, Judith, Krieger's life partner, Doug Holder, Gloria Mindock, Varon, and Tomas O'Leary. Did I forget anything? Judith, Gloria? Okay, we're on. Okay, so Tom, Tom Daley, you are on, if you would open up your mic.
Hey, Jesse.
Yeah.
Before, I think I was gonna do the introduction to
Good.
Krikor.
Okay, you're right.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so just to say, as Krikor's other person for 33 years, I was very touched by Gloria and Jesse suggesting this. It was their idea. And when they offered to do this, I was kind of taken aback by, I don't know, it's a lot of time and organizing energy. And I'm just kind of seeing this gathering as a time that all of us coming from many different places, poets and family and distant family that don't see each other that often, that couldn't come to his memorial, and friends. So just welcoming you all, really happy to have you here. And we're going to reflect, remember, reminisce what we call Krikor. We don't call him Creaky or Creek, we call him Poet Man. And to celebrate his artistry and to just listen and take in his voice in all the many variations that he wrote in and about. And so I thought I would start with reading his dedication. So when Jesse said that he didn't start writing, he actually wrote his whole life. But when he reached, I started with him when, I don't know, I think he was 52 or something. And he really got prolific after that. And that's when he started writing. And that's when his four books came out after that. And he did have a story, which probably the bagel bards or poets have heard of, how he had accumulated pages and pages when he worked at Walker Home for Children, of poems that he kept in a briefcase, and he took it with him to work every day. And he just carried his poems with him as if, they were his trusted companions. And at one point, they were lost. The entire bag was lost, stolen, and all his poems went to the winds. And they were returned. Someone found the bag, whoever took it, and I guess they didn't want his poems, and returned the poems, and then he shredded them all. And so all of his poems were written since he was in his 50s. Yeah. So this dedication is from his book, The First Generation. And I think most of you know that the cover art on his 4 books are all his father's, Garabed DerHohannesian paintings, who was quite a renowned painter and a teacher at RISD School of Design. And so here's his dedication. To my maternal grandfather, Armanag Nazar, who fled Turkish Armenia, and this is in 1910, to escape the Armenian genocide, along with his wife Gulenia and 4 young children, one of whom was to become my mother. His mother, at the age she came to America on this escape, was 4 years old. Armanag was a writer and a political activist, making him a marked man. Upon settling in this new country, he founded the first Armenian language newspaper, by car, in the United States, and was an advocate throughout his life for acknowledgement of the genocide. And just as a sidelight, his grandfather never spoke a word of English. So the interesting thing is, Krikor wrote and dedicated his poetry to his grandfather, who never spoke a word of English to him, to Krikor. My love for writing began at an early age as I sat by him at his desk, watching him pen his editorials and write his poems and short stories, all, of course, in Armenian. Then, too, I felt his great unspoken sadness at having been uprooted. Some of the poems in First Generation attempt to slide beneath the shield of that which he kept to himself. I can only wish that I have done him justice. So that's Krikor's offering to us today. So yeah, I turn it over to Tomas. Is that right? No, Tom Daley. Sorry.
It's all right. I would be honored to be confused with Tomas O'Leary, but that's all right. So I recommend everybody switch your view, if you haven't already, to speaker, because you can hear a little better. If you're like me, if you're a little deaf, you can read lips, or if somebody has a strange accent like mine, which lands somewhere between Asheville, North Carolina, and Worcester, Massachusetts. Anyway,
Does everyone know how to do that? Just saying top right corner. Pull down view and it'll tell you gallery or speaker, and he's just suggesting we go to speaker.
It should be that automatically with my recording, but if not, yeah, then do that.
Well,
No, it doesn't. You have to do it.
I
Yeah.
hope it does. If everybody sees a big screen, if not, then do what they said.
Mine did it automatically.
all right, I'm first on the list, not because I was a great friend of Krikor, but because my name happened to be alphabetically the first one. Although I did not know Krikor very well, I always enjoyed talking with him at Bagels with the Bards, which is a weekly gathering founded and hosted by Doug Holder, who's here today, and Harris Gardner. I remember Krikor's sober and winking response to some of the madcap antics that would take place there. I remember his raspy-throated chuckles that would emerge in response to someone's witticism. I remember the penetrating calm that his eyes and his firm hands would produce in almost any encounter he and I had. I remember Krikor most for his kindness to our mutual friend Barbara Seon Green, who struggled mightily to keep her husband Patrick at home through his long decline into the terminus of an incapacitating illness. Krikor would visit their home regularly, helping Barbara to transfer Patrick from his bed to his wheelchair and back again afterwards, so that Patrick could sit up with them and enjoy a visit and a meal together. Here are 3 poems by Krikor I came across online at Delta Poetry Review. Barbara says they are 3 of her favorites by Krik, as she affectionately called him. They are favorites of mine as well. Wambaw Creek. Draped over the knobby knee of a majestic cypress, a cottonmouth dozes, wrapped in a blanket of cozy April sunshine. Astride the far bank, a young doe hesitates, eyes us warily, spindly legs on tremulous alert, nostrils flared before bounding off apace through the swamp grove, flushing a wild turkey from its morning bath amid the cat-o'-nine tails. In a wild flail of wings, we, the intruders, paddle ahead quietly, feather oars with great care to mask the ripples of our trespass. Mama Jackson's Sugar Shack. By repute, the coldest beer and nastiest jukebox in the Santee Delta. A pool table to boot, how could I possibly pass? Sashayed in, white as white on rice, daubed onto a tableau of black barrel housing, hooting Saturday night away and a date with the Amen Corner next morning. Slapped a quarter on the side rail, waited my turn, grooving on Ivory Joe Hunter, and damn, wouldn't you know, ran the velvet straight off the break. You sure enough shoot a mean game, brother. Where y'all from? Ain't never had brew this cold where I'm from, my friend. Got me some change if you want another pass. McClellanville, South Carolina. And the last poem is called Old Man. Hunched on his stoop, he whittles at the hours, strokes long, well cadenced. Time slows. The Carolina sun hangs high, spewing noonday heat. A fly buzzes with menace, pauses its raid to settle on the brim of his floppy plantation hat. A crusty hand rises, a perfunctory swat, and back to business. Concentration deepens facial grooves, furrows etched by the silver blade of a prejudice far older than he. He doesn't speak, his eyes lidded, cast down. Shavings of brown bark skin pirouette to ground, mounding curlicute at his shoes, crusted black with bottomland mud. The honed stick transforms, bone white, smooth as a sliver of fine African mahogany. That's it.
Okay, so I am going to read next. I'm going to read a poem that Judith brought to me called A Man Is Down. And although Krikor passed before Alexei Navalny, the minute I read this poem, I thought of Navalny and just the incredible loss. So incredible loss of Krikor, an incredible loss of Alexei Navalny. A Man Is Down. There is a rhythm to the early morning rain. The empty house, the empty hours, when you lie awake with nothing else to do but listen to the music. Sometimes a jazz riff, excited, a downpour of good cheer. And other times, like tonight, slow, lugubrious, a dirge with its coded message tapped on the roof, the panes of the bedroom window. A man is down. And now the wind rises from the east, a moan through the leafless maples. And you wonder, could it have come this far across an entire ocean? A wife is keening, a child is squalling. I must grieve with them. I must mourn him and all like him who choose to rise against the oppressor. A man is down. Others will rise in his stead. The rain, the wind, they tell me so. And so, Judith, I think you're next.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just want to say that it takes me to a morning waking with Krikor with the wind and the rain. And waking with Krikor in the mornings, early mornings, was sometimes quite thick with lots going on in his psyche. Takes me back. I'm going to read two poems that I feel are in not contrast with each other, but kind of hold each other in a kind of odd sort of way. They're both in his second chapbook called Refuge in the Shadows. And just to let you know that this particular book was printed by Gloria Mindock, who's our person running this, her press, Servina Barva Press, in Somerville, and in I think it was 2013. So thank you, Gloria. Requiem. Mother, dear mother, last of those from home, with your final raspy breath, the eternal flame shivered briefly with remembrance for all those whose blood has long since dried to dust, whose mutilated bones augment the scree upon rock-strewn plateaus where once our forebears grazed sheep, gathered pistachios, harvested figs and grapes. In the shadow of Ararat, churches of bygone Byzantine grandeur molder on once fertile plains, now barren of a way of life. The wind whistles through those frescoes and stained glass once glowing, testaments to the glories of God, now only a memorial to his departed flock. Almost a century has passed, fresh rumors float on the wind. Osman's descendants intend to plow under all vestiges, once and for all, to silence the screams, the pleading, the cursing against a forsaking God, the raging against their butchers by ghostly spirits. But for the Brutus in their midst, so they might assuage guilt and expunge sins and bury lies, Anatolian breezes will forever betray them, bearing bone dust and blood motes into every fissure and crevice where Armenians once lived, where you, mother, once lived. That's Requiem. The second poem is called The Flower and the Candle, and Krikor recited this poem many times, including when this book came out at our house when we had a gathering. And so the image of him standing up on our stairwell saying this poem, and we had a flower and a candle next to him, comes back right in my mind. The Flower and the Candle. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes in hazy reverie, in those fleeing, adrift spaces, they appear side by side like offerings to appease the dark gods of despair, as buffers against the siren call of isolation, sentinels against the flight of the spirit, the dread of mortality. The vase of ranunculus, those tight-lapped petals, pigmented yellow-orange, a medley of all the sunrises and sunsets since earth time began. And the candle, pomegranate red, its tenuous flame dancing in rhythms at the whimsy of each puff of air. Wax and blood, the melt of its own heat, the ebb of its own life, dripping, pausing, yet inexorable. The flower, always, always bending toward the light, the warmth, the promise of life. Sometimes the candle flickers out, a mean incubus haunts the air, ghouls of the dark side fill the void. I reach out to relight it. The flame dances again. Or the flower wilts, petals drop one by one, a shredding of yellow tears, a stalk sucked dry of life's juices. I give it water, and its thirst is quenched. When the day comes that I move on, it will pass to others. The candle will be kept aflame. The flower will have water until the day all our suns finally flare out, a circle completed, perfectly round. The flower and the candle. Thank you.
Those are beautiful, Judith. Thank you so much for reading them. And Doug, you are next.
Well, first off, I'd like to say we were very grateful. The New England Poetry Club is very grateful for Krikor, because when Diana was sort of in her dotage, he came in and, brought people in and really actually saved the club. And then Mary Bodwell and others came in and continued the legacy. But anyway, where we have Bagel at the Bards, right now where we're located in the basement of Panera, the first thing you see is a staircase, and you see people's legs coming down. And I could always tell it was Krikor, because there was these impossibly long legs. And he would come down the stairs, and he would have his usual bear claw. It was always a bear claw that he would have at the Panera Bread. And he was a Renaissance man. He could talk about art, baseball, especially jazz, and politics. And he had a very distinctive laugh. And he had he was a no sort of bullshit sort of guy. He was, straight, no chaser, And he always had a nod, that he would say, "Yep, I've seen that, done that." And at first, I don't know, I think he found me kind of annoying. And then we grew to be friends. And just before his death, I've taped him, I put it online, and we had a discussion about his life, and things like that. So I'm going to read one poem of his, and it's called Orphic Dreams. And here it goes. You told me of your dream, where I was to be tried, then judged for some offense. No writ, no warrant, a mystery. And when that day of reckoning arrived, I was scaling the granite steps of a courthouse. It was somewhere in Armenia, and there sat the judge, a woman whose eyes spoke. You needn't fear me. I know why you are here. I dropped to my knees, genuflect, on stones, hands in supplication, the sum of my life awash in a cascade of tears, cleansing the steps. And now it is afternoon, along the New England shore, a hot summer day, the kind that makes you want to live forever. I am lying on grass, cool to my back, and here is my dream. I'm walking in an estuary in Carolina Delta country. Cypress and Spanish moss hang over the banks. A cathedral enveloped by mist rising off the water. Droplets of dew cling to my body naked, but the air feels eerie, haunted with tacit warning. If you cross the creek, there will be no going back. I am pulled and I dip a toe and ankle, and now I'm up to my knees, moving toward the far bank, when I feel the presence at my back, hackles on edge. I sense my daughters on the bank from whence I came. The chorus echoes, if you turn to look at them, you will never see them again. I am too weak, only a silent prayer wells. Whoever grants forgiveness, please forgive me. They are huddled like refugees, tiny rills of sadness on their cheeks. Their hands wave once, twice, a tentative farewell. Their eyelids droop in mourning, and now I am weeping, turning away. An aura is suspended in the mist, though. I can't see you. I know it's you. I feel your embrace. It holds kindness, offers the solace I crave. I evaporate into your arms. We vanish in the fog, shapeless. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. That was beautiful. And Glow, you are up next.
I always loved Krikor's sense of humor and his wit. And you might remember at the memorial in the armory, I mentioned him rolling his eyes, and I have never forgotten that. And that was my favorite thing about him, is rolling his eyes. Sometimes exasperation would show on his face and he'd go, "Ugh." And it just cracked me up. And I picked the conversation because I could just see him, between the mind and the heart going, "Oh." So that's why I chose this poem, Conversation. Mind was bored one day, so he decided to play with what it would be like to be completely bored, as in dead. But the rest of the mind fired up a barrage of flack, cacophony enough to startle heart, who was in the midst of an afternoon nap. "What the hell was that?" yells heart. "Well," says mind, "there's little corner of me that's curious, but trust me, I don't go there very often, much less stay long. That's what we minds do, go to the weird places now and then. Sometimes I'd rather be you, all heart, so I don't have to think about such things." "Well," says heart, "you needn't worry. I'm the one who should be afraid. If I stop, I won't be able to feel ever again. I don't know anything else. I'd be lost. Besides, surprise. I enjoy our arguments." "Don't you see," says mind, "that's the point. When you stop, what happens to me? I'll have no one to play with. And I was just trying to imagine what that might be like." By now, mind has a headache. "Welcome to my world," says heart. "I get it. If you go dead before me, what's the use of carrying on? They have these contraptions that keep me thumping, whether you're there or not. If you leave, I don't trust others to decide. If you're gone, I want to go with you," says mine, far too morose. Dear heart, tomorrow is tomorrow. How about some Coltrane and a growler or two? Heart leaps, riffs a quick jig step. You're on, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Glow. And Lee, you are on next.
Well, I remember so many of the things people have mentioned. I got to know Krikor at Bagels with the Bards, and I remember the rolling eyes, and I remember the chuckle. It was really a pleasure to get to know him. And I'm going to read two poems from The Last Day, his latest chapbook. The Day Approaching, in memory of Mara Stevenson. As sudden as a summer squall, the prognosis eclipses the sun. A cloud of surety that your days will never again be the same. Of a sudden, life is rudely finite, and the question, if you knew tomorrow was your last day, isn't the grist of cocktail party chatter. Instead, days of suffering, days of hope, days of despair, counting down against the allotment, loosening the fierce grip on days now precious as pearls. New Year's Eve and oyster bisque, no one could make it better than you. My old Kentucky home, loud, soulful at midnight. And the other poem I'm going to read is called Wake, and it's Ifyani Manaki in Memoriam. How absolute, permanent the stillness of death. I stood beside your casket, willing to stay as long as it took to see your chest rise and fall again. Wishing your eyes to open, your lips to part in speech, signature smile at the corners. Waiting to see your hand reach out as if to reassure us all. I wanted to break with decorum, extend my hand to touch yours, as you touched so many, propriety be damned. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Beautiful. And our final reader is Tomas O'Leary. Tomas,
Yeah.
Okay.
Am I on? Yeah, am I there?
you are.
Oh, praise the. Okay. I have. How come I'm not on the screen? Everyone else was.
We can't, you probably can't see it.
Oh, all right. I have held a warm kinship with Krikor for many years. I don't even remember when we first met. Maybe 15 years ago. And he made me realize that if I weren't Irish, I'd really like to be Armenian. So that said, here are two poems I've selected to read of his. The first is called Morning, and it's in first generation. Beyond habit, there is reason to rise before the dawn, when the air is freshest and artistry begins anew, daubed in many hues from the master's palette. Orange, magenta, rose. Brushstroked on mare's tails and alto stratus, an overlay of pocked mackerel sky. The moon, a silver sliver of an eye, winking between the clouds. The indigo canvas of the night sky lifted back minute by minute. The rhapsody of the mockingbird, the sparrow, the cardinal, the warbler, all roused to a new day's song, the liturgy of call and response in the morning breezes whisper, the rustle of the maple's leaves. This gentle promise of beauty not to be erased by human depredation, this reminder of the awe, the wonder of a child not yet sullied and jaded, the betrayal of a lone tear, salty on the lips, for it is all this I shall miss the most. And these hands, which appears in the chapbook Refuge in the Shadows, and is also in this full-length volume, First Generation. These hands, how strange to look at them with young child's awe. These hands I take for granted. These hands that point and beckon, clap and slap, accent speech with dips and swoops, and held my children newborn, tiny fists clenched, grasping at air. Thumbs, fingers that once danced on guitar strings, dug the dirt to plant the rose, held the pen that wrote the lines. Palms with their crosshatch of heartline, lifeline, love and worry. The mound of Apollo, of Venus and Mercury, the plain of Mars. What to read into them? Mysteries only the gypsies claim to know. Hands, I see your truth. Wrinkles like wind-blown ripples on desert sand. Veins, the blue-gray of the river. Knurled knuckles, nails ridged like bark. Skin as brittle as old scrolls, calluses with their history of every squeeze of a shovel, bat handle, or rake. These hands I put together now, palm to palm, a bow of gratitude, a prayer for grace. And I'll say one little poem that I wrote for Krikor on the occasion of the in-person memorial celebration at the Somerville Armory, at the cafe there, where you know, he and I had attended many, had read in many gatherings of what's it called? First word, less what? Anyhow, the readings that Gloria and Harris had run. This is called Krikor With Us Now, a toast at the Armory Cafe. In the ordered chaos of a spectral Kamalie, our ghost hands stretch their fingers to trace the map life etched on lines as readable as day or night, on Krikor's garden of a face. Get out of my face, he growls with conspiratorial mirth. Surely we didn't believe we'd be having this party without him to bind us in good cheer, even offer some help with the eulogy. A tad too pious, too sweet, he says, was his take on those first lines. But he forgives it with a shrug and says he's seen worse. We've often applauded his own poems in this very same cafe. The commingling of spirits is righteous in a light and frolicsome mood. Still, a sumptuous grief arises for Krikor, full-bloodied, blasé. Death killed me, the fucker, he says with a grin, but I wouldn't miss this, no way.
That was so good. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our poets. This went very quickly. It almost feels like it was only about 5 minutes listening to all of these poems. I was thinking that after the poets read, we might have a small break to, gather together the folks who would like to add comment, but I don't see any comments in the chat. And I'm wondering if, Gloria, do you see anyone asking to be in the chat?
No, not at all. So that would be good to take a break and maybe they can, put their name in that they'd like to say something.
Okay.
Do you want us to put it in the chat or raise our hand to make a comment? This is
Yeah.
Barbara Green Sion speaking.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, dear. How are you?
Good. You're just speaking to what I was thinking, is that sometimes we could just open it up.
Okay.
And there's 2 pages, so I can kind of scan. If people know how to, like popcorn style, you could just
Sure,
up
sure.
or raise your hand and
Okay.
unmute, or whatever, kind of free flow. And I think people will kind of come to the altar here.
I
and
like that.
say words to Krikor, and I'll try and watch the galleries. So do you want to go ahead?
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Beautiful.
Well,
Yeah.
I just want, okay, thank you, Judy. I want to thank all of the readers. This was a feast, and I was looking forward to it. And I remember those of you who were at the live memorial program, and this was a very special day. Krikor was a special guy. It was a 40-year friendship. And I see Adam Hannibal here, and I'm glad to see him. It is Adam Hannibal's father is responsible for the 40-year friendship between Krikor and Judy, my husband and I. I had Adam Hannibal and I had, not Adam, but his dad, Emmett, had the same mentor. This was Stephen Trachtenberg over at Boston University. And his administrative assistant, who had moved to Missouri at that time, had come back to town. And she called and I said, great, I want to see you, of course. Why don't I have an Easter brunch for you? And she said, okay. And Emmett Hannibal was coming into town that weekend. So I had the brunch. And before they arrived at the house, Emmett had called and said, do you mind if I bring a friend? By all means, bring however many you want. And it was Krikor. And I liked him instantly. And it has been a friendship all of those years. And Judy, Creek, and the whole gang. And we have broken bread. We entertained and loved each other. But when my husband became ill, it was Krikor who would come, he would cook, he would feed him. Whenever he had to be in a nursing home after hospitalization, Krikor was always there. He made sure that Patrick had a visit every day until he came home. But I think out of all those times, the most special for me was after my husband's loss of speech, Krikor would read his poetry to him. And Patrick would look at him, they would hold hands, and Patrick would sigh. He would always sigh. And it was his way of saying, thank you, I get it. So I have a lot of memories, and Judy, you know that. And I see Krikor, the moment I walk in to our home, I'm going to show you the painting. When Creek called and said, hey, pick out what you want, this was the one. I took it off the wall. I didn't know whether we'd be able to share screen. And this was one of his dad's many. Can you see it?
Mm.
Are you able to see it?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of. Not the best way to look at it. But I loved it because it was so vibrant, the colors, and there was something about it that reminded me of Creek himself. It was so vibrant. So his passing was very sad for me, and a lot of memories are very special. Di, and of course Judy, and the whole family. I mean, even when my husband was in Africa, on that particular Easter Sunday, we called, and I was able to introduce Krikor and Patrick across the Atlantic Ocean. And when Patrick returned, once they met, I knew that it was going to be a lifetime friendship. It was very special.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah.
Fred, and then we'll get to you, Christine. I can see your hand.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Barbara. It's so serendipitous, but right that I should follow right upon what you said. I wanted to say a word about my last email from Krikor. He had, I think, it may have been a reading at the Armory, or it could have been online, but he wrote me a nice note about a reading I was in a year ago, in last April. And in that reading, I had read some new poems that addressed my wife's Parkinson's diagnosis, and he wrote me a note saying that and I'll never forget, as long as I live, this incredibly Krikorish and beautiful phrase. He says he knows about this insidious malady. What a beautiful way to put it.
Yes.
And he said his father, a brother, and his best friend all.
Yes.
And he was talking about Patrick.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to acknowledge that big heartedness on his
Mhm.
part. Really and truly. There are a couple of other things. The last time I saw him actually was at, some of you are familiar with the William Joyner Center for the Study of War and Social Consequences. And there was a wake for Michael Sullivan, the administrator of of the programs there. And Krikor and I were standing in line in the wake. That's like, right. And then finally there was the great sense, the reason why he was associated even with the Joyner Center and down in Provincetown in workshops, is his great sense of the Armenian genocide, and that he carried with him, memory that that would disappear into oblivion if he and others like him didn't find ways of preserving it. And so I want to read a poem of his. But I keep bouncing back. Oh, damn it, I lost it. I keep bouncing back and forth in my computer thing. This is from Doug Holder's wonderful website, The Sunday Poet, and it's a poem, an elegy for Krikor DerHohannesian. It's called Premonition. Instinct does not lie. I should have listened. We hadn't spoken for a while, and just days before, I thought I must call. Instead, it was I who was called. There would be no more long conversations about family poetry, the club, and all those crazy Armenians. Not only memories as delicious as our mother's home, now only memories as delicious as our mother's home cooking. We should have been there to hold your hand one last time, to lend comfort as we would all wish to be comforted. Alas, intent, such an empty vessel. Rest easy, dear lady. And I would say that that Krikor comforted folks.
Thank you, Fred. And Chrissy. Can I ask you to mute once you're finished?
Oh, thank you. Can you
background-
hear me? Can you hear me now?
Totally.
Thank you. And a cherished cousin, Cricky. And just my thanks to you, Judith, for years of devotion and fidelity and ongoing. And to everyone here, just the beautiful reading. And I know the friendship and the kinship here. And truly, I just felt and feel and continue to feel the essence of Krikor, just no separation in love. It's as close as one's thought and one's heart. And Krikor, just a beautiful tribute to family, and it's all one family, to past, to present, to future. And I remember our cherished gatherings in Rockport in the summer, Judith. And Krikor was a wonderful cook, as many of you know, and a specialty was grape leaves, these stuffed grape leaves, Yalanchi Doma. And when he brought them, he always knew it was one of my favorites. And he'd bring a separate little stash and he'd say, this is for you because they're going to really go fast. And I would hide those. And he just got it. Krikor just got it. And it continues. So my gratitude to dear Krikor and to all for this tribute that goes forward. I know just to bless. So thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy, for holding this Armenian family in such tight regard over these many years.
Wow.
Much
You're
appreciated.
part of it. Very special part. Thank you.
Adam, be nice to hear from you.
Thanks, Judith. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Barbara, for that incredible story about my dad and the connections. Very heartwarming. It's good to see you again, Barbara, too. It's been since, I think I was in Boston in 2006, so it's been a little bit of time. I just wanted to share a few words from Creek. When my father passed away in 2005, I spoke to Creek on the phone a few times and asked him to write a little tribute for my dad's gravestone. And so I've seen these words many times since then. And I think they bring very true about Creek as well. So I just wanted to share this, and actually what Fred just said about comfort from Creek pretty much resonates exactly with the words Creek gave to me. And so on my dad's marker, Creek chose the words, take comfort here in the spirit of this man. And hearing all of these stories about Creek and just feeling the energy from this group, I just feel like we can also take a lot of comfort from him going forward. He had such warmth and such great energy to give to people. So again, I'm honored to be included with this group. I don't know too many of you, but I can feel these connections, how authentic they are, and how inspiring and powerful Krikor was. So just thanks for including me, and I thought I'd leave you with those words.
Thanks, Adam. So just take a moment to see anyone else that might want to say anything. I don't know if Beatrix. Have to unmute, Beatrix. We can't hear you.
So now, can you hear me?
Yes, you're on.
And can you see me? Because I don't.
Now we
Okay.
can hear and see you. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I think I met Krikor many, many years ago at the beginning when the Bagels Bar began to be organized, but also to the so many gatherings in Diane DerHohannesian's gathering after each reading. And there was something very special to me about Krikor that there was a kind of down-to-earth authenticity about him. And when we got in those gatherings, because he was Armenian, Diana too. Diana was one of my best girlfriends ever. And Krikor was someone that we were poets. And he used to tell me, because we began to talk about Armenian things, and suddenly he said a little poem, and then he will give me like how you prepare a certain Armenian food. And it was really enchanting. Thank you so much for all the beautiful poetry that you read and all the beautiful memories. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatrix. Just a note on Diana DerHohannesian's gatherings. They were pretty amazing in terms of the conversations and the food. Mhm. Yeah. I'm just kind of grazing across these little boxes to see if there's anyone that would like to. Yeah, Nina.
I'll try. I've been sick, so hopefully my voice I won't lose my voice, but I figured I would say something from one of his daughters. I've had many visits from my dad. And I also write poetry. So some of my insights have come from his visits. So I thought this would be a good chance to end with this poetry. Sorry, this poem that I read, that I wrote. Sorry. Okay. This might have been only a few weeks after he passed. I was taking an afternoon nap, and I fell into this really vivid dream. and it was a visit from my dad. Sorry. But it was so vivid that I knew it was him, because I saw where he was hiding. Because ever since he passed, I just kept saying, "Where are you, Dad?" And so this is what I wrote, piecing it together. I saw where you were hiding, at the end of a sparkling ocean, the sun beaming with a white warmth, as if it were smiling, one like I've never seen. A heavenly horizon, your favorite place, no surprise. A glimpse gives me joy, just for the quickest of moments. The reassurance needed for my tired, soaked eyes. As you now watch over me, I have to learn this new skill, that which has been forced upon my human will. The one where I must accept your new state of being, of everlasting consciousness, eternal poetry of sorts. Oh, the irony in it all. So he's happy and he's in a very bright, beautiful place. And I saw where he was. It was amazing. So that's what I wrote. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, dear Nina, for being willing to express that with all of us, because I think it touches everyone. We all experience loss and brokenheartedness, and it's good for someone to have the courage and bravery to just put it out. Thank you.
Yes, it was just beautiful, very touching. Really felt him in it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, well, Nina's not the only one that has the courage. Anyone else? Just Tomas? Lee, yes.
Okay.
Okay. This was iffy. I didn't know that I would. Sometimes, actually on a couple of occasions, Krikor and I would play at writing a little piece together. It was strictly for the joie, the fun of it. And none of these ever aspire to anything other than just the play of it. So one day we were at an outdoor cafe in Harvard Square, and we were bouncing around the notion of the bardo, and what the hell is a bardo? And I have here, it refers to the Buddhist concept of in-between, an intermediate, transitional, or liminal state between death and rebirth. So anyhow, we went on that like this. And we even decided that the meter would be roughly, the streets of Laredo. Okay, you prepared? We were kicking around in the bardo one day while taking our ease at an outdoor cafe. The square, it was Harvard, the weather real nice, and our easy palaver did just plain suffice. Tween slugs of cerveza and savory cig smoke, it lightly occurred, maybe we had passed on. Maybe all we were seeing and feeling was post-croak. Yet somehow it seemed we still just got along. See their faces all frozen on straw-stuffed cabezas, says Krikor, while watching the crowd shuffle by. Says I, but we both know we talk with erasers. Delete what we've said when it just doesn't fly. That's all, thank you.
I have to say, some of our funniest, most fun times were when Krikor would be coming racing into wherever I was saying, "You've got to read this." And it would be some response or some initiative Tomas was taking to get Krikor to like join the fun. And they went on like this. It really, you were such a spirited friend for Krikor, Tomas. Yeah. Okay. I have something that I think I'll read after Nina did. I too write a lot, but not poems, not poetry. But after he passed, I sat and reread every poem he had written over a period of a week. And I found myself like feeling really, I know all of you have lost people and some of you have lost your partners. And, you know, there's such a united front in kind of being fresh out of losing a partner, a life partner, because of the day-to-day quandaries that come up in the morning and who you talk to and who you eat with and who you get into fights with, anything. And there's this void that sort of came into my life, and I'm a very connected person. So I just started writing, and this is, I mean, like Tomas said, this is sort of a, he didn't say stupid, but this is just sort of like a little poem. But it really reflects, I wrote a series of them, and it really reflects the way that we teach each other, our partners, the multiple pathways of love. That's how I see it. And it's not always great love. It can be hard love or honest love or trickery love or whatever. So this is just one. It's called This Is Love. One who brings spirit to life when sorrows surpass joys, teaching intimacy with all things. One's heart springs wide open, receiving death after death, without fail or pity or doubt. One bows to such teachings, remembering life's wholeness, to all that is, no exception. Every heart breaks. This is love. So as Krikor would say, oh, Judy, you know, you're always so Buddhist. So anyone else want to share? Or just say goodbyes, whatever. I don't know if you've read Krikor's One by One poem, but in the end, I'll just say his goodbye. When my day arrives, come to the quay, dear ones. And if I haven't left yet, squeeze my hand. Let us shed salty tears, a last smile for what bound us all. Or if my ship has sailed, linger a while, smell the fresh salt air. Let the wind caress your face, dry your tears, and may the warmth of the sun bless your day. I will be a dot on the far horizon. Look for me, remember, because I will be waving.
So beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for sharing this. Yeah, it's going on YouTube. Gloria can tell you.
Yes, I'll have it up probably Monday or Tuesday, and I will send a link.
And I will look at it often and listen.
Mhm. Yeah.
I miss Krikor.
I just have to say how touched I was by all this. I lost my wife, and so I know what people are going through. And just very, I left just extremely touched by all of it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. You've been an inspiration for all you do.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever the silence is, break it and get it out into the world.
And you know, I just want to say to Nina that I was confused, very confused, the morning that I woke up after a very vivid and a very real visit from Patrick. And I didn't, I dreamed vividly all the time. There's the animations, the colors, but this was very, very different. Very different. And I talked with someone about it, and the person said to me, well, what do you think the dream meant, Barbara? And I said, well, I guess I died for a moment because I was where he was. And this where he was sitting on, I guess, a log or sitting on something. I was quite comfortable. And he was next to me. But we were surrounded by wonderfully warm air and a field of yellow and white daisies. And we never spoke. He just kept looking at me and smiling. And I smiled back. And I don't know how long it went on, but it went on for quite a while. And I woke up. So when I was telling this person about it, and the person said, well, what do you think it meant? I said, well, you know, I was dead, and then I came back to life. And the person said, no, that was Patrick letting you know that he's okay now. Because he had suffered for so long, so very, very long. And hearing that said to me made a big difference, that he is okay. So when we lose the people we love, and particularly those who have lived extraordinary, giving lives, as my husband did and as Krikor did, when we lose them, they're free of whatever suffering they had. And that made a big difference for me, a tremendous difference. So that doesn't say that I go on, you know, bouncing merrily down the street. I don't, because I can certainly relate to Judy. The mornings are hard, and this is 3.5 years later, and the nights are hard, and not being able, hey, babe, what do you think of this? All of that is difficult. But I know that Patrick would have wanted me to find joy in life without him. And it's very easy to say. So I make an effort.
You just froze, Barbara. So we'll keep you on. And Doug, you were going to say something. I don't know if you can still hear Barbara. I hope you can hear.
Relate to Barbara's experience because I had a very bad case of COVID, and I was alone because Diane had died, and I didn't take the whatever it's called, the Paxlovid or whatever it was, and I think I was pretty close to death, and at one point I was coughing up phlegm. I was, you know, I had feverish. I was hallucinating, and then and I remember that I fell asleep, and there was Diane, and you know, it was a hint of music, and I was in a beautiful pastoral scene, and I was holding her, and we were just so incredibly happy. and I didn't want to leave, but I did. And I came back, but I really know what Barbara, is saying. I think, and I know a lot of people experience that, and to me, it was incredibly real. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, so touching. Another thing, and I know that people are ready to go, is that who writes a book of poetry that gets published and you get them in the mail, 100 copies, a week before you die, and the title is called The Last Day. And so many poems about Krikor, and knowing this internal knowing death through his intelligence, sort of his, that he wanted to be a geologist and a paleo. I mean, he had a mind that just explored and went into facts and knowledge base. I mean, he's the only poet that did spreadsheets of every moment that occurred in his poetry. So I just was so taken by, his spirit was so not like mine. It was so different than mine, but it was so powerfully deep into his world of bringing up death and dying and, the genocide. And he wrote poems about every member in my family that died, that was in a nursing home. I mean, so I just hope that lasts. I'm really looking for an Armenian interpreter in case anyone knows an Armenian interpreter, to put his poems into Armenian as well. That's just a flash ask. So thank you all for hanging in. And any last words from anyone? How about just saying you're unmuting and, saying goodbye to everyone, whatever.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
you,
much for
everyone.
coming.
Thank you,
Bye. Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Adios.
Thank you.